Investing Insights with Right Property Group, exploring trends in real estate and helping property investors gain financial security.
G'day, how you going? Phil Tarrant. Welcome to Property Investing Insights as we kick off 2026 with the crew over at Right Property Group as we continue our special series on Design Your Decade. You would have tuned in December of last year and talking about decades, someone who within the family of Right Property Group has certainly designed their decade. Melissa, who retired after a period of time working at Right Property Group, but she had a big side hustle, and that was investing in property, drawing and learning from all of the experience she had working with Right Property Group clients, and she's happily retired now. But if you listen to that podcast, you'll have a big question mark. Maybe she'll come back. I think there's an itch to scratch, and you may see her back at the Right Property Group fold, but she's happily retired now and haven't checked in with her since the Chrissy break, but no doubt she enjoyed herself, much like Resmi and Victor Kumar, who are now back in the studio, back in Australia for 2026 as we continue our discussion around Design Your Decade and we get into some of the mechanics of being an exceptional property investor. So this just isn't about buying property, it's building a portfolio, and they're two very different things. If you listen to most podcasts around property in Australia, it's all focused on buying property rather than building a portfolio. So Design Your Decade is certainly around building a portfolio, a resilient portfolio that you would hope to think will grow over time to provide for what most people want is a comfortable retirement, depending on what your vision of that is. How's it going? Good to see you, team. Back.
Hey.
Pretty good, yeah. Back.
You're looking very chilled and relaxed.
Firing on all cylinders, though. So it's like a duck, right? So on the surface, it's very placid, but this year is all about paddling really hard underneath.
Why do you need to paddle so hard?
Because there's all these clients that we need to get to their goals, and obviously with this year being that we've had consecutive increases in inflation each month from June, that's certainly going to put a lot of color on what's to be bought and what's not to be bought, and what finance you got to take and what goals you got to pursue. So this is going to be a very, very rewarding but interesting year.
Do you concur, Rishmi?
I do. Well, people
This is the first time she's agreed with me, though.
people are now more aware of that. This is what the climate is. You know, things are going to be like this for a while, and you can't just sit and wait for the right time. So, yeah.
So if you can buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and a year and a bit ago, when we sort of, this Design Your Decade was a sort of a nascent series within the Property Investment Insights podcast, we spoke about how you guys once a year get together and sort of do your goal setting and planning, and I think that's somewhere between Christmas and New Year's by memory.
Yeah. Boxing Day is when it triggers.
Boxing Day.
That's it.
Did you do that this year?
We did.
And was it productive?
It always is.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, this year we actually strong-armed the kids to get involved as well.
Okay.
So they've done their own goals. They're sort of hiding it from me. They've shared it with Rashmi, but they're hiding it from me because I'm a bit too judgmental and too directive in how the goals should be and how they should achieve.
You're too strong, too assertive. You forget you're dealing with teenagers, they're children, they're little children.
I was chatting with someone the other day, and you know this person, and when they were kicking off as a property investor, they used to do sort of strategic sharing of their goals. So that they'd actually go and tell people what their goals were people who they had a lot of respect for, because it made them feel embarrassed if they didn't achieve their goals in front of like strategic sharing, right? Like going, hey, I'm going to do this year. Go, all right, no worries. And then they, or maybe strategic accountability. You can't keep yourself accountable.
Yes.
So your kids aren't doing that with you, Victor. You don't know what their goals are.
No. I don't actually.
No?
Yeah, I sort of have an inkling as to what it is, but they have to run their own race rather than really be spoon-fed, which is one of the things that we're working towards. Is they need to understand that yes, we've given them a high platform to start from, but they need to make their own wins in life.
Yeah.
The thing is, I remember, our elders said, well, it was easier for you guys because you started from nothing.
Pretty much scratch.
Right? Yeah. And you've got to this stage, but for us, it's already here. And how do we start? Because we're not struggling. So it's a little bit harder for us. We understand that it's something we need to do, but it's harder for us. That's what.
And this is one of the dichotomies of potentially building generational assets or wealth, right? You know, it's easy to build something if you start with nothing, but if you're sort of inheriting something partway through its process with an expectation around success, failure is a lot harder because you lose everything rather than gain everything.
True. You've got a lot to lose.
If you've got nothing to lose, it doesn't really matter, right?
That's true.
And no doubt people who are handing on generational assets have that relationship with that.
Well, it's not just the generational assets. It is also, if you look at the general populace in Australia, we are largely middle class. Yeah. From an income point of view, from an asset point of view. In fact, per capita, Australia has the highest number of home ownership, property ownership. Yeah, in the world, one of the highest ownership. And so we've already got something that we are then afraid to lose. So a lot of people, when they're starting to invest, they take too tentative a step towards investing, and they say, okay, I'll try one, see whether it works out. And then, of course, then they look at the social proof of why it didn't work out, because I'm going to risk all of my nest egg over here. So it does work against us that we are, compared to other countries, we are relatively well-heeled as Australians, and it does make it a lot harder to achieve phenomenal results.
Yeah, and this is one of the negatives of being comfortable, right? Because comfortable is I want to stay comfortable.
Yep.
Why would I want to risk things when what's the difference between being comfortable and more than comfortable? For most people in Australia, well, it doesn't really change things. It might change the car you drive or where you go on holidays, but you're still living in the same place. And we're recording this just after Australia Day. It's this sort of uniqueness of the Australian culture, which is this sort of hybrid narrative of our origin stories with our Indigenous population for 60,000 years, and then this sort of notion of British settlement, and now this sort of interconnected migrant story. Yep. This is the nature of Australia. It's the reason why so many people are attracted to this place is because essentially, if you secure an Australian passport, there are outliers to this, you're essentially subscribing into this notion of comfort and middle class.
Absolutely.
It's largely a given if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's also quite a dangerous thing if you want to sort of be ambitious. So anyway, but this is the strategy aspects today around designing your decade. And there's probably two things running in parallel. There's the actual tactical elements of it, like a buy and hold strategy or a sort of construction or development strategy, or a more sophisticated strategy around sort of building silos, et cetera. And we'll get into them today. But there's running in parallel that or augmenting that is sort of more philosophical strategies, like, understanding your life and your capital situation and what these goals and experience are. Maybe we can kick off there in terms of strategy setting. Where you are in your life probably matters quite a lot to determining what you're going to be doing in property investing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Where you are in life, are you a young person? Are you married? That tells you basically how much time you have. I mean, there's no guarantees to life, but as a young person, you've got a lot more time. And for someone in their 40s or 50s, they are kind of pushed for time. They don't know. It's a little bit of an anxious state because I haven't really done anything for myself and this is all the time I have. So that's why where you are in life, how much money you have that you can play with, or what is your financial position, will then determine the strategy you would choose, because a young person could have a long-term strategy of buy and hold and leave it because you've got time behind you, whereas someone in their 40s or 50s would have a little bit of a dynamic strategy where you could do a little bit of a mix match of stuff. But then again comes the comfort level. So your comfort level will then either hold you back or let you progress faster. And sometimes when you see somebody who does not have many years to get to the result that they're after, kind of there has to be like a fast track process. And so that's where I call it the strategy matrix. We look at the age, the financial position, what stage of life they're in, what's coming up for them. Everything determines where they are at in life, and then work out which strategy would work. And then as you go with your strategy, you've got to forward think that why am I implementing this particular strategy here? Because this is all the time I have. So if I do this strategy, then that allows me to do the next and the next so that I can get to my goal. So where you are in life is very important, because it's not only your age, it's your amount of money you have, what's coming up for you in life. All of those things help map out what the strategy would be.
So a lot of that is contingent to what you're chatting about, Reshmi, is your comfort levels. And that's probably, I guess, manifest that into your relationship to risk is what that's about. And everyone's no doubt different. Or do you see some commonalities in your client base around, it's probably more age orientated than anything?
It is a bit of both. So often people come in with the social proof of someone in their circle that has used our services, they've done really well, and they've basically said, hey, this is easy. So they've done the doubting part for them.
Yeah.
Right. Because, this is intangible until you actually get to the results. Right. So there's a lot of faith that you need to put into time. Given enough time, everything generally works out. So when people come in, they've got the social proof of, yes, it'll work out because it's worked out for Bill or it's worked out for John. And once you've got that under your belt, it's fairly easy. Now, also, you've got another cohort of clients that are coming in that listen to this podcast. They're educating themselves. The good thing about today's day and age is that there's so much information available. If you know how to filter the information to make it your pertinent to your situation, and when they come in, when the strategies are set in place, if they have mapped out what the major milestones are in life. So as an example, it could be, I've just finished my uni degree, I've just started a job, but in 3 years' time, my salary will double because I'm on that fast track for income. So we then set up the portfolio accordingly in line with it. And it could be that someone's starting out, they've got minimal deposits. So we're starting with something small. So it's very bespoke. The thing that I find really interesting, and this is perhaps as things happen, as education happens, that everyone, when we started probably about 5 years ago, everyone had a goal of, I want to get $100,000 in income, right? Recently, towards the middle to tail end of last year, I started seeing a whole lot of cohorts coming in, 150K. Now, maybe they're adjusting for inflation. Maybe there's a seminar out there that's saying, easy to get 150, or there's a book out there that says that. So once someone says a goal, it sort of resonates. People go down that path.
Yeah.
I think
better not share ours.
Yeah. So when you have these sort of goals, you really don't want to make it pie in the sky, intangible stuff. Bring it back to your income level, and perhaps that is a starting point, right? So I know I've gone all around in terms of looking at who are the clients and what goals do they come in with, but this is by and far how much you want to push yourself, how committed you are to actually getting to a goal. So is it just I had a rah-rah moment and I'm just going to go for this goal? And what are your check-in points? And then what's also happening in life, so that you're not just becoming so investment focused that you're simply not living life.
That's
I was guilty of that.
Yeah. Well, it worked out all right.
Well, you can be absorbed and obsessed with it, which you probably need to be for a period of time. In order
the thing
to
is,
get going.
it has to be in the background. It should not impact your lifestyle, and you should not feel like, oh, I'm building a portfolio and I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's something you've got to be committed for quite a number of years and let it happen. And you've got to trust the process. And so that's where the importance of the person building it for you comes in. But you've got to trust the process. You've got to take it easy and not be anxious. Like right in the beginning when we were starting out, if we hadn't bought, for me actually, if I hadn't bought anything for 6 months, I was getting very anxious that we haven't done anything. So people should not be thinking that way, because we've built a portfolio over a number of years, and we've kind of can build it again if, let's say, if we had to, and we continuously do this, so we know that, okay, it's not such a big rush. It's okay, take your time and do it, but do it within a certain time frame, so that you've got, while you're still young, you can enjoy the fruits of the hard work. So,
that's a good point, right? You don't want to sort of graft for decades and decades and decades, and then just you're too old to enjoy it, or your health doesn't really allow for it.
Don't do it for your kids.
Don't do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. Be selfish. It's key. But all strategies are going to be directly connected to the capital that you have. You can be as ambitious if you want, but if you don't have any money, you're stuck. So structurally, that's going to govern pretty much everything you do. Is what capital you can secure at any given time, and there's strategy around that, and then also your ability to manifest and manufacture money to satisfy banks that you're able to pay loans back. And yes, you're going to be getting rents and stuff off property, but when you're kicking off and even when a portfolio becomes more mature, they're not going to be positively geared to the tune that you're going to be able to be servicing big chunks of debt without some other source of income.
Correct.
So capital is really going to dictate everything, and what they say, 90% of winning is beginning, right? So you've got to start with something. So at some point in time, you're going to have to save some money or get some money somehow.
Yeah. And there are strategies. I mean, I'm not sure if we've mentioned like going on with joint ventures with somebody. If you're not able to borrow, you could, if you can see clearly that this is a way I could still capitalize on an opportunity, you could go into joint ventures and split the profit. It will take you a little bit longer time to get to being able to fully fund a property yourself, but it's a starting point.
Well, that might be, you could do 2 or 3 purchases and liquidate it and raise your own deposit and step out and do it. But most people actually syndicate property investment. That you're typically doing it with 2 people, and that typical constructs a partnership of some sort, with a husband and wife, or whatever your version or variation of that is. So you are investing together with someone. So typically, if you do that, you're only ever owning half of the portfolio. However, it's a combined portfolio for as long as that relationship begins. And we haven't really done a podcast on this before, but no doubt you've done a little work around this. I'd like to know the other side of that, of deconstructing a portfolio. Particularly when the stats are out there in terms of
divorces.
Divorces, right? Well, 50% or something around there, no doubt you've been involved in that before.
Yes,
we did. I was the richer one.
Every time we have an argument, I have to do the sums. Oh no, okay, I better fold. I better fold.
Start trying a little bit harder, Victor. But so capital's going to steer and drive those things.
Capital and the ability to hold on to the property. In other words, the ability to cater for the negative cash flow. The reality of today's market is that, by and large, most properties that you'll buy will come with an element of negative cash flow in the beginning. And then it'll correct itself.
Assuming you're investing at 90 or 80%.
Correct.
LVR.
Correct. Yes. And assuming that you are investing in growth areas. And not right in the sticks.
And that's just the nature of the cyclical property market that we're in right now. And there's certain places you can buy them down in Melbourne now for units for 350 grand, but you're getting 7-8%.
Yes.
Yields on it, right? So even at 80%, that's probably positive from the get-go. And that might be part of your strategies to acquire those type of things. But, kicking off and looking to build a portfolio rather than just buy property, expect them to be negative sometime. I think of one of the portfolios that you guys were integral in building, has in it like a bunch of properties in Brisbane. That's now that's now positively geared. That's now a truly positively geared portfolio. And the reason why is that we've never refinanced.
Correct. It's gone through its one cycle. And the rents have now gone up.
Yep.
Values obviously have gone up and you haven't tapped into the values to then increase the debt burden.
No.
And that's really important as well to understand that a lot of people think that if you buy a property and then keep tapping into the equity, that will be positive. It won't be, right?
Won't be.
Of course, against the original debt, against the original purchase price, yes. But you need to be, if you're building up a portfolio, there needs to be a buffer level of how much negative cash flow you can tolerate in the portfolio. And then it ebbs and flows. Some years, as properties mature, the cycle matures, we are able to get closer to, if not into positive territory. Then there are other years that when you ramp up the accumulation, this is where you slip back into negative. The trick, of course, is that you want to have the accumulation stage very much staged so that you're getting your purchases out of the way and then reassessing, letting it consolidate. And then you can then decide, okay, is this enough? Do I let time do its magic? Do I tinker with this? Do I lift up the hood and see what else is there? What else can I do? Or do I just continue accumulating?
I've got one point to say. This accumulation phase, you said, okay, you just only accumulate and then put it, that's it, done, and then you decide later what you're going to do with it. What happens is, it's very easy to fall in the trap. When you see a really good opportunity, then do you take it on or do you just leave it?
You stick to the plan.
Stick to the plan. And this is probably the concept that property investment is binary, as in you buy for a period of time and then that's it. And for a lot of people, that may be the best strategy for them, and it's probably a universal strategy. This is sort of a buy and hold strategy where you buy rapidly as quickly as possible for a period of time, and then you just
leave it alone.
Just leave it alone, and with a view towards, in 10, 20, 30 years' time, however long that is, to sell down some assets, pay it off, and then you've got an unencumbered portfolio that provides income.
Yep.
That's probably realistically the
That's
best
most
outcome.
of the investors.
That's probably the best outcome they can do.
Yeah.
It's the buy and hold strategy. So you must have seen it. You've been doing this for so long now.
Yes.
You probably have people who bought hard and then that's it.
But it takes a very, very long time to pay those debts, to be able to realize that income. So if you just buy and hold and just leave it, to be able to get to that, to pay off the debt without doing anything more than just paying yourself and the rent paying it. That's where the other strategy is, the dynamic one, where you can do something to bring down the debt, and so you can at least not take as long a time to pay off the debt, so you can realize the income.
So this is being a lot more operational and tactical inside your portfolio. So buy and hold, buy as many as you need, leave it there, pay it off in time. Call that
the other thing,
A.
one strategy, one thing further you could do with the buy and hold is buying a little bit more than what you need, and then sell a couple of them and then pay down the debt. So
everything boils down to how do we harness the cash flow, right? How do we get to the cash flow? Because the growth will be there. Whichever strategy you undertake, the growth will be there.
Should be if you buy
it should be, especially if you're using RPG. Couldn't resist the plug. But if you need to look at it from, okay, if I am starting at, say, a mid-40s, 50s, your buy and hold approach is really not going to get you to your goal unless you're extremely lucky. And so we need to then tinker with what we've got. So the strategy needs to be a lot more dynamic. We need to manufacture the cash flow. We need to manufacture the growth. We need to take it into account that, okay, our peak borrowing capacity is usually around the 45 to 55 mark, but then it'll start to wane down. And also we would also start looking at, okay, kids have left home, potentially. There's less expenses. Do I ramp up? Do I do different strategies? Years ago when we started and when you started, we could make everything work with residential.
Yeah.
Now with the prices the way they are, how far they've moved, there needs to be either a development element or a commercial element into it. I've resisted doing commercial for a very long time. And it was post-COVID that we started dabbling a lot more into commercial. We always bought every now and then into commercial, but post-COVID, when the prices weren't, the residential prices were too high and the rates started barreling up, it took longer for for me to take clients to their goals if it was just purely a residential approach. So there needs to be a mixture of properties in there. And this is testimony to how you need to take and change the approach. The concept's still the same. Take and change the approach as the market changes, as the economy changes, as your fundamentals change, ability to hold on, age, all of those things.
So is this more of a dynamic approach, or is this more of a another strategy which is sort of creating silos of properties in different asset classes and for different purposes? So buy and hold, buy a whole bunch of properties, hold them over time, wait for the loans to go interest only, the principal and interest, and pay them all off over 25 years.
Yep.
Happy days.
Yeah. Well, if we look at, let's peel this back a bit, right? So if you look at our buy and hold and our very first property that Reshmi and I bought, which was our home in Currants Hill, which is in the Camden Council area of New South Wales. And we paid a whopping $137,000 for a 3-bedroom, 15-year-old home at the time. Standard A.V. Jennings home. Had this old grey carpet on it. And it was well below what we could qualify for the bank, but we looked at it from a holding point of view. We were young immigrants, and that property today is worth $900. Now, so we bought. Yes, I still have it. We bought that in 1998. Now we moved out of there in 2006. Yeah. At that time, we rented it out, and it was $350 a week rent. Today the rent is $750. Okay. So if I look at it from the original debt, 137. Let's say let's bring it up to 200,000 because we did a bit of renovation. Half of the skirting is still painted one color. I haven't touched it since.
So do you hold on the property for nostalgia?
That was our first property, yes. And the fundamentals on that is rock solid.
Yeah, cool.
Rock solid, yeah. We've got the Badgerys Creek Airport very close to there. It's a good owner-occupier area. We've got a lot of employment hubs all around it. Yep. Mind you, when we bought that, we didn't understand that. We just looked at it from a convenience factor and affordability factor. And that worked out, right? So which is one of the tick boxes, right? The convenience factor, the affordability factor, and who would rent or buy off me. Yeah, so it was largely on occupier area. So if I look at it from, let's say it was a 200K debt, right? And let's say the interest rates were 7%. So that's $14,000 a year in interest. Add another $6,000 for your vacancies, council rates, insurance. I'm just really ramping this up. Yeah. Yet my rent coming in is $750. My cost now is $400 a week. So I've got clear $350. So in other words, I've got very close to $20K in positive cash flow off that one property. Yeah. Now, if you multiplied that over 5 properties, let's say you took a sedate pace and bought, obviously you won't be able to buy 137K, but in line with the market, because 137K was medium price at the time in that area. So if you multiply that over 5 properties, that's your $100,000 net income coming in. Of course, you've got to pay tax on it. So ownership-wise, this is where the buy and hold approach, you need to be very tactful in terms of who owns what, because you need to think of it from what's going to happen in the end. And then the other thought process is, of course, come into retirement, how does this ownership help you or hinder you tax-wise? All of those things, obviously, as the portfolio becomes larger, you need to start getting the strategic advice, not just from your property strategists, but also from your accountants, your estate planners, your financial planners.
And when you go into that depth and detail, you just sit there and just go, there's so many things to worry and consider and think about. And a lot of people get stuck thinking about all the what-ifs into the future, which maybe stifles their decision-making today. You're not going to get it right. No. 100%. No. So expect it not to be perfect. It'll be probably right for the period of time you're making those decisions, but there's a lot of things that you just known unknowns and unknown unknowns, and you just sit there and maybe in 30 years' time and go, oh, I wish I ... didn't do that.
Yes.
But these are problems you can deal with largely. If you get it wrong, the worst case potentially is you've got a tax problem being you're probably paying a lot more tax than what you maybe would be if you structured it differently. But, better the devil you know with all that sort of stuff. So you still hold this property.
Yes.
and you nearly have 30 years then. Wow.
Yeah. So if you look at it from a cycle point of view, there's several cycles in that,
There's
right?
a huge amount of cycles, and there's the sort of structural cycles of property dynamics, but then there's like Campbelltown in the mid-90s is very different to Campbelltown
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah.
But you still live in the neighbourhood.
Still live in the neighborhood.
You love it.
Yeah. Obviously, we live on much larger land now.
Yeah.
About to rent while we build.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's certainly gone through.
Why don't you move back into the family home?
In the family home.
You can paint your skirting boards.
No, it's too small.
Too small.
Too small. Do you still drive down the main street of Campbelltown past stuff? I've been out there for ages, past Rashies and people doff their caps to you, do they? Or,
No. I keep a very low profile. Yeah. I'm just a humble property owner.
It's a humble, struggling property owner providing rental accommodation for the heartbeat of the Sydney community, where there's a lot of the engine room of workers out there. So that's buy and hold and how it can work, right? And that might work, and it probably will be the solution and the reality for most property investors. But this sort of
sorry, Phil, if I can jump in there. One of the thought process and the small voice at the back of the head, I can't buy properties at 137,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy a unit for 350. Same numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. If it just did the same, it's exactly the same result.
Well, you hear what they think the median price for Sydney properties are going to be in like 2040, which is like, what's that, 14 years away, and the mind boggles how big those numbers are. So, and a lot of people say, nah, it's impossible that's going to be like that. Well, just go back and have a look through history. But so you, rather than buying and holding and putting your faith in history and the performance of property, you can actually get involved and start tinkering a bit and being a little bit more dynamic with it all, which might be, the next sort of degree of sophistication from buy and hold strategy before we get into the next degree, which is sort of a multiple silo-based portfolio with a lot of things happening simultaneously, but sort of constructional development. So we're talking granny flats or renos is probably within the realm of most people's capabilities.
Absolutely, and you don't have to physically do it, right? The expertise can be bought. So you get the tiler, get the painter, get the kitchen guy, and for our clients, they can lean on our contacts because Rashmi and I have done a lot of renovations. So I have a lot of our clients, you involved. Did I say involved? Included.
I was involved.
He was just, doing the renovations. He was just commanding, move that bit from here to here. Yeah.
I'm okay, renos. I'm doing one at the moment. I do enjoy it. I probably annoy builders.
But, so if you look at it from age-wise, affordability-wise, you got to move the needle yourself. You can't wait for the market, right? So if you are above age 45, perhaps the strategy is, yes, you start with a buy and hold, but you buy a property that has got the X factor on it. So it could be, perhaps it's a tired-looking property, structurally sound, and has got the ability to add another dwelling to it or knock it down and put a duplex.
Yeah.
You bide your time. You make it foolproof so that it stands on its own two legs, the development stands on its own two legs, and you do the development, which then gets you really simple things, right? So let's say you bought a house and you built a granny flat. You're really accumulating, in this investment game, all you're really doing is, people think that you're accumulating houses. No, you're not. You're accumulating rental income streams. So if you're going to get another rental income stream and not have to pay stamp duty and not have to pay my very reasonable fees, which saves you in combination, say around 50K, yet you still got relatively the same rental income stream, would you do it?
Yeah.
You
would do it.
Yeah. So a lot of people mistake buying houses, lots of houses, as the result. They're mistaking the activity as the result. But if you took a more sedate pace of buy something, wait for a year, come back, build a granny flat, that's just as good as buying another property. Obviously, you don't want to build a granny flat or secondary dwelling in an area that does not have a demand for it. You don't squeeze it onto the block, and you don't compromise on the quality. So spend good money on building it, and understand where you're building will determine your return, as in which state and which suburb will determine your return, and your cost of building the granny flats is relatively the same across Australia.
Yeah, in some places in Australia now you can build granny flats with very simple approval processes or no approval, right? Where it's under a certain thing. But however, you might have a buy and hold strategy. You might want to start being a lot more active in your portfolio creation, building a portfolio. Sometimes it might be the only option available to you, where you might be tapped out of the market, lender won't lend you anymore, but you might be able to sort of raise the funds to what's a granny flat these days? $100,000. You probably
now, 250.
So 250.
250 after you include your council fees,
When
your
did that
landscaping. After COVID. Yeah. So put it in perspective to the listeners. So put it in perspective to the listeners. Pre-COVID, we were building, you and I both were building granny flats at 120.
Yes.
The same granny flat is 250. And I have a sob story to tell.
Here we go. Get the violin out.
I know.
World's smallest violin.
Yeah.
So in Logan, I had a corner block. And just as COVID hit, I got the approval to build a 3-bedroom secondary dwelling as a dual occupancy on that block at a cost of $157,000. Decent house.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? It's really uncertain. I've got too much going on. I've got all these clients hassling me. I need to find properties. Plus, we had a whole lot of other stuff happening in life as well. So I parked it. I said, I don't really need this.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we built that for $309,000.
So you would have had a fixed price contract.
The cost of procrastination is very extreme.
So that's might all that be available for you is this sort of dynamic thing. So you buy and hold, and you might be 2-3 years tapped out, or you know, and that might be a structural thing. You might have been going from a dual income to a single income.
Yes,
all these type of stories. So you can still be active in your portfolio. Building granny flats, one thing. I've always been a bit sort of reluctant for sort of doing it
because you don't need it in your portfolio. You don't need
whatever.
it.
Like I'd just rather buy a joint as new income. That said, though, I was just sitting there thinking, while you're talking, I haven't bought anything for ages, Victor. I blame you personally for that. We're working on that.
He's a very hard client to please.
But you can just do renos as well for value adds and stuff, and that might just be for the purpose of getting a rental uplift, or might just be for the purpose of creating some equity, value harvesting, if you want to call it that.
So the number of properties you would buy, you also have to be careful, because when the maintenance comes, you've got to be able to, be comfortable with that too. You can't just buy so many properties and then, just keep buying. There's a time when you stop buying.
Yeah.
People continue buying all their life. You've got to stop buying at some stage and then maintain that portfolio.
It's a really important point, and I think there's a veneer out there of sort of positive cash flow properties, and much like the reasons why we kicked off Smart Property Investment, because we thought there's so much BS in the market, why we built that portfolio with you, because there's so much BS out there. It might be in principle positively geared, but I was chatting about that portfolio that we have with a bunch of properties up in Brizzy. One of those assets is a unit block with 5, I think, units in it. Like, it's only now in positive territory that the list of stuff I get of all the things that need fixing, like gutters and verandas, and so I start going,
including the land tax.
So I start thinking, I might start doing some of that work now.
Yes.
Which means it's not going to be positively geared.
True.
So positive gearing is a choice. Sometimes it's a reluctant choice that you cannot not be positively geared because you've got all these things, or sometimes there's at a point where a positively property can become negative geared property for the purpose of doing all your repairs and maintenance and stuff. So, you can actually, this sort of middle ground of a buy and hold strategy and a really dynamic strategy is sort of playing around with granny flats and renos. When we started investing, the name of the game was value uplift through renos. I just don't think it's not as current these days, is it? Unless you're doing something drastic.
Substantial renovations, yes. The cosmetic renovations, you'd rather let the market do the lifting. So when you have good momentum in the market, you want the market to do the heavy lifting. In a down market where the market is slowing down, you want to push it up by doing the renos. So when we started with your portfolio, it was an uncertain market. We're just recovering from the GFC. And we wanted to have safety in terms of the deposits that we're putting in. Plus, we wanted to be able to harvest more and more capital to go faster and buy a lot more. So therefore, we took a renovation approach as opposed to just a buy and hold sedate approach. If we're starting today, I'd probably go more buy and hold than renovation approach.
It also got the arbitrage is very different today than what it was back then.
Correct.
You know, to get the uplift. Now the uplift, you used to think you were winning when you sort of got 30 or 40 grand return on your dollars. It costs you a lot more now to manufacture the equity uplift comparative because of trades and everything.
That's true.
It's so much more expensive. So when do you know it's time to sort of get into more sophisticated strategies? So you buy and hold, and you start maybe building some grade flats and doing some renos. Reshmi, like what are the indicators that it's time to sort of step up to the next grade?
When you feel like it's very boring now.
Which I'm sure is a driver for a lot of people. Bit samey.
I don't know. It just naturally happened, I think, with us because we were always doing all of these strategies right from the beginning because we went in not just a simple buy and hold, and we were like doing this joint ventures, subdivisions.
We were forced to do that
because we didn't have the money, so we had to create the money. And one of the strategies in this, going one step back, was the strata title, doing like a single title block and then strata titling them and selling them. So that was another one of those dynamic strategies. How we went into the pod system, I would say, is more...
Is that a TM next to it?
It's got TM.
Kumar pod system, the KP.
Yes.
And it's not an acronym, it's pod as in peas in a pod.
Peas in a pod.
Okay. So as we progressed, we just naturally found that this was a better way of structuring things so everything balances out itself, and it was a system that you could multiply like with any
scalable
system. It's very
very scalable. So conceptually, then you just put a whole bunch of properties in different pods and probably have a different strategy for each of them. One might be buy and hold, one might be dynamic, one might be build to sell.
The different types of properties within the pod. So
and it might be even a land tax diversification thing to do that, because you still get some. I think Queensland, you still get
a threshold. For trust as well as personal. And understanding that, and this is really important as well. Excuse me, that, in the sense that you need to understand what the land tax laws are in each state, and also understand that they are subject to change. Right, it is sovereign risk. So if you look at New South Wales as it stands right now, you got a land tax threshold personally. You don't get a land tax threshold in a trust, but you get a land tax threshold in a company, right? So go figure.
It's crazy, isn't it, with that company thing?
Yes.
Yeah. What's all that about?
I have no idea, but I'm not going to complain. I'm just buying properties in a company name. Get really good accounting and taxation advice before you go down that path.
What's the threshold? Same as
$1,070,000.
$1,070,000. So the value of the land, $1,070,000. And you just keep creating companies. See, the thing is that you sit there and just go, $1,070,000. The compliance costs of holding the company would be less than
probably $500 at the worst.
The land tax. You got to set it up and stuff, a couple of grand and all that sort of thing. But and then Queensland, it's a threshold up to a point, and then you pay top of that. And if you set up another trust, you get another threshold.
Correct.
And again, this is, obviously all the lenders are trying to sort of shape, trust-based lending, but for the right type of client. When you start getting into a pod-based system, you've got to start thinking that way.
So the pod-based system is a lot more sophisticated. So if I look at it, buy and hold is your primary school. Your secondary dwelling, subdivisions, renovations, that's your secondary school. Pod system, you're definitely in tertiary education. Right. So you need to have a few runs on board, and you need to have a lot more strategic approach, a lot more mentoring, a lot more finance structure, a lot more accounting advice to get to that pod system. But once you get that, it's not limited to number of properties. It's limited to your appetite.
Yeah.
Because each pod becomes self-servicing, because in there you've got a get out of jail card properties. In other words, if the life went pear-shaped, things went pear-shaped, you can offload that property, within 2-3 weeks and walk away with decent capital. You've got your cash flow property in there. So it could be in our case, which was the Logan property, which is what should have cost me 157, cost me 309. But that's got good rent. That's got $650 a week.
So it's positive.
It's positive, including the depreciation. It's definitely positive, right?
Well, that's another whole
that's another whole aspect of it, right? Not that you target depreciation, but you would take advantage of depreciation as you build.
I bought some stuff which I didn't buy for the purpose of depreciation, but I actually had that element, which is,
it's a nice bonus.
It's money for
second or third order effect.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So you've got your get out of jail. You've got a cash flow property. You've got your generational property. Your generational property is what would be something that you would hand down to your generations, hence the word. So that could be a zone property where the kids are coming in to do the development at some point in time. You've also got your simple buy and hold in there as well.
Yeah.
So you've got 4 different types of properties in there that in combination, so it's not positive from day one, but in combination, it becomes quite a bit positive.
Yeah.
And if you threw in a commercial in there, that's definitely positive, right? So, and I'm not talking about selling down something and buying the commercial. I'm talking about using the equity of the pod to buy the commercial within that pod. So initially it'll be negative, but as soon as the rent reviews start coming in, starts leaning back into positive really quickly. And once you've got that, and it doesn't have to be all in the same state, doesn't have to be all in the same council area. You can diversify the lenders. So if you go back to all of our podcasts last year, we talked about all this diversification. So once you've squared that away, take a breather and say, okay, we can do the next one or the next one. Or it could be, yep, I've got this. This is now self-sustaining. I can go on with life.
Yeah. And as part of that pod structure, you can even use it as a estate planning.
Yes, absolutely.
Mechanism as well. If you sort of...
So entity is very important.
Entity is important, different entities and all that good fun stuff, which is good. But, again, we're talking the fringes of property investors there who sort of get to that sort of level of sophistication.
So only certain people would go for that. Most people would be...
strategy one or two.
One or two.
Yeah. Yeah, and the 1 and 2 sort of works for a lot of people. And I always say property is one of the great Australian side hustles. If you're got a good PAYG income, you can actually have your own business in property, and if you really want to get active, you can do that that second thing, which is messing around with renos and building stuff. And you find that when most people go down that pathway, you've seen it all the time, when someone starts investing in property, go, I'm going to be a property developer and I'm going to make all my money developing duplexes and then triplexes and then villa things, and some most of them do their dough, but go and overplay in a safe sandbox with largely, if you've got the right mentorship and the right connections, a granny flat, and you might not like the taste of it because these things never work out well. There's always problems, there's always delays, there's always issues, there's always problems. You might not like it. Go and have a taste of it. But that's good. Okay, that's reasonably quite simple.
Yeah, simple but complicated.
But complicated.
just like me.
Oh my gosh! God.
So what's going to be different for Right Property in 2026 versus 2025?
Well, it's more of the same.
Yeah.
Just giving quality service, putting a lot more colleagues in play. So we're in a recruitment drive.
Okay.
So if you want a job, reach out to us.
Really?
We will talk in line with the skill set.
Most people that join buyers agents typically start off as property investors and go.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I don't want to do my other job now. I like property.
Yeah,
you do a lot more commercial these days as well, right?
We do.
Yeah.
So we've got Sidoma, who's really a gun at his game. He's my head of commercial, and we evaluate multiple deals every day. Most of it we reject. And only a few filter through. So it's an interesting game.
What constitutes a good commercial deal?
It comes back to what the exit strategy can be for that property to begin with, right? Like just like residential, the fundamentals are exactly the same, and whether you're going too low in price as well. Yeah, because you're better off than buying residential.
Yeah, there's not a lot of good stuff out there these days. Sub $1 million.
No.
I think that's behind us now.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to capital. You got to get it from somewhere. And you might refinance all your resi stuff back up to 80% or 90%, pull that money out, and that's a lot of debt you're carrying. You got to make sure that we've got the right decisions.
Correct. Yeah.
Good. All right. How do you find the team? How do you reach out? What's the best way to have a chat?
On the socials, or jump onto our website, rightpropertygroup.com.au. There's a contact me form there. There's a contact me button, which gets you in touch with us. If you're getting in touch with us with the expectation that you'll get a property tomorrow because you've contacted us, that's not how we work. So there's a lot of background work we do with you first to make sure that the properties we find for you and the strategies we put in place is in line with what you want to achieve and is keeping you safe along the journey as well.
It's pretty important. Got to put those guardrails up.
That's it.
But don't put too many up that stops you from pressing ahead. So,
and just remember that it's about building a portfolio, not buying a property.
Well, you buy a property, that's it. You got to manage your thing, and that's going to be a big theme for
Plus,
2026.
we're also doing the Right on Track. We're going to bring on the different topics this time on the website so people can see what the topics are. Because our Right on Tracks, we have been so busy that we kind of did not do. It
fell in the background last year.
Yeah. And it is something we really started like long time ago, which has helped a lot of investors, and I'd really like to see a lot more happening this year.
Are that in person or?
In person.
Yeah. Okay.
In person.
All over the joint?
Well, we'll embrace technologies in person and online.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people like the in person because you get to have a chat afterwards.
Absolutely.
Yes. That's the whole idea. That's why we did it, because when investing, you find yourself, you are just on your own alone. You don't know who else is doing. You don't feel like you belong anywhere. So this was a community where people could share their knowledge and experience and learn from other people as well. So that was the whole thing.
Analog still rules, I reckon.
Absolutely.
To the old-fashioned way. That's Property Investing Insights with the Right Property Group. Reshmi and Victor Kumar, I hope you enjoyed that. Plenty of other episodes you can tune into. 6-7 years now, no longer.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years plus. I've been carrying you for 10 years.
Yeah, so it's still. And me and Victor will jump online also soon and give you a sense of some of the stuff he's working on for me in the background. You can check that out on the Smart Property Investment Show. We're just we've had a couple of false starts, which is okay. It's part of the journey.
Bad client.
Bad client. Bad administration. Bad everything.
Bad buyer's agent.
It's a bad buyer's agent. Dodgy lawyers. It's all going to be coming out in the woodwork. So this is some of the buying I'm doing right now with the team over at Right Property Group. So we'll get stuck into that as well. So tune in for that. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature, does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.